Hey y'all, it is Moonlight Cowboy, and today we're going to look at this tugboat and see if we want to try and build it. It's really not too hard, but there's a few things I wanted to discuss first before I go into the tutorial. Now, I do love the way that this tugboat came out. I did kind of push this forward a little bit faster than normal because there was a lot of feedback about sky camps on social media. So, I have since submitted this to the to the best builds. We'll see what happens. I still haven't been banned yet. Again, I tend to think that a lot of that was a misunderstanding from Bethesda and whatnot. So, for those who had been banned for unoffensive or camps that don't exploit resources and things, my hope is that you get unbanned if that was a thing for you. So again, don't want to beat it up too much, but it seems like Bethesda is coming around and doing the right thing by the community, at least the building community, from what I have seen so far. So with that said, we'll get into this cool little build here. So this, when I say it's not too hard, we look at here. Obviously, to do it in the sky, you do have to do the camp glitch to get up here. To ghost your camp module or ghost an item to put your camp module on. And there's a couple of ways to do that. I know that I have tutorials on here about this, so rather than make it about that, we're just going to do this anywhere. You could do this honestly on the ground above water because it's with roofs, so you could get pretty close to the water. So there's a lot of different options here for you. But first and foremost, all I'm really doing is making a roof platform here to kind of get started. And if you notice, I have a bunch of catwalks there. That is so that way I don't lose my spot up here. There's nothing worse than getting up in the sky and then not being able to spawn back up there. The other thing I'm doing here too is I'm trying to get it as low as I possibly can to the bottom of my build circle, just so I can build up, and that way it gets me a little closer to the structure too. Those with a jetpack could probably jump over there. Only one of my characters has a jetpack though, so anyways. So here, this is me kind of going through the prefabs that I wanted to use, and I kind of settled on this snack shack here. So I like the roof on it. And it's about the right size for what I was looking to do. And then the other piece too is this here, this little blueprint I made. How did I make that blueprint? So for those of you who have the Roundy Boy blueprint, if you don't, I'm going to leave a link to TNG's tutorial on how to make a round blueprint. But this was pretty easy to do. And initially I thought I remembered it differently. I was like, oh man, I must have taken a while to do that. And then I realized, oh my goodness, this was really easy. So I know I had said before, oh, I worked a long time on this, and I was like, oh, maybe I didn't. So all I really did was I pulled half of the walls off of the round blueprint, the infamous, the one that everybody has. They're like, oh yeah, I can build. I have the special blueprint that all of the builders use. Well, it turns out I still every once in a while, I guess, kind of dive back into this one right here. It wouldn't let me put it at that wall, so I just removed the foundation because again, we're just doing a little blueprint action here. We're doing like a secondary blueprint. Of course, I could always make that mistake. And realistically, yeah, this is all I'm doing. I'm basically adding catwalks, and I'm catwalking the walls over. And because of where I did it, with getting the walls in here, it actually it ended up being the perfect wall distance from each other. So as you'll see here in a second, you can just so I didn't end up doing the back of my tug this way, but just to kind of show you for those who want to, that's pretty good. So anyways, the other thing I want to show you too, because you're going to need to know how to do this. I'm going to bring this up later, and I always, Moon, you didn't show me that your roofs were a little bit lower or higher. So I'm just throwing this in here too. So all this is this is my trick to, changing the height of roofs by one roof height. And all I'm really doing here is I put a foundation, a wall, and then I attach an angled roof, a half wall, angled roof, half wall, and then I'm going to attach a flat roof. And what this will do, because walls for roofs have two snapping points. So what this is doing is I'm basically telling the game that, I'm going to change that snapping point, and you do that enough times and you actually get it to be a little bit higher than your previous roof. You could do this in smaller increments too. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. If you don't want it to be a full roof width high, it could be like half if you only did it one time, but doing it the way that I do it makes it pretty much exactly on top. See how that looks right there? So, and I'm going to do it one more time for those of you who, kind of missed it. So again, angled roof, half wall, angled roof, half wall, flat roof. And then what I'm doing is I'm just kind of removing the middleman there, that wall and that roof. And then I'm going to start working that back down by just using angled. And I'm not using walls this time. I'm just angling them down. In fact, I'm going to remove that wall right there. And angle down, flatten. I call it walking it down because that's kind of what I'm doing. And one more time. And that should get me to the next height. In terms of the tiers that I have right there. So 1, 2, 3. We can remove that one. And then I'll kind of show you, if you're ever interested in stacking them, you just destroy the roofs that you're trying to stack, because they won't let you place them right on top of each other. They will if you destroy them. We'll just repair that and destroy that one. Oop, there we go. And I'm going to do it one more time. Again, this is just as an example. Oh, I went the wrong way. Just as an example so you can see how this works, because there's a couple of times where you're going to want to do this, and I'm going to tell you to refer back to like that 5 to 7 minute range in this video, so to speak. Yeah, so there we go. And then of course you can always change those roofs to whatever style you want them to be. In this case, that's the rest in pieces roof. And there you go. So now you know how to do it. No confusion, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I know there will be somebody, but my hope is that you'll be able to refer to this. So anyways, we made our blueprint. Hooray. Notice this one's a little bit bigger than the one that was that I showed you. And all I really did was I put it on the roof platform there. I made it a little higher than the bottom of the build area. That way I have room to get underneath of it. And now I'm just turning it into just regular walls, just to kind of get an idea of what like the shape is going to look like when it's all said and done. These aren't the walls that I end up going with, but this way I can see if there's any kind of mess ups in the blueprint or anything like that, God forbid, right? Before we get all the way started. So from here, I'm adding some roofs around the top. Again, I'm just kind of mapping out, and I like using these glass roofs because they're kind of like grid patterns. It really helps sometimes if you're doing any kind of free placing with the alignment piece. But this blueprint, just like with the other one, would be 5 wide. So anyways, yeah, this gives me kind of an idea, and it also gives me a little bit of a platform to work off of up there if I need to. Now, what I did there was I angled that one roof down, and I attached that roof to it, and then I flipped it up, because we're creating a little texture on the inside here. I'm going to destroy it, to give it a little lip around the side. All going all the way around. We're going to do the same thing again here. Pretty easy so far. Don't worry, I'll make it complicated for you. And then do that again. And then we just keep kind of going around, and we're doing that to get that first lip in. The other reason to do this lip, it's not just for texture. It's actually going to hide the fact that it's rounded. Because the rest of this dock, I don't want to see any glitching or like, phasing or flickering when I'm done building this camp. So I'm going to create another set of roofs that will go through kind of in the middle of that. So that way these will cover that up, and those roofs will be a straight line. They won't be like rounded like this. So they're going to go into there, but you'll see what I'm talking about here in a few. I'm just doing a few roofs like this. I'm not going to beat you up and make you do all of them with me, but I just wanted you to get an example of what that first process looks like. All right, so now we're going to kind of remove some of these platforms out of the way. I like to keep working platforms around, especially since I don't have a jetpack on 4 out of my 5 characters, so then I can just kind of jump around on the different things and perform some acrobatics as needed. So the next thing I'm doing here is I'm going to add a door, because I want to get an idea what that prefab looks like. And for those of you who don't know, a lot of the prefabs can be placed just by attaching them to a free-placed door. So we need to get the door in first. The way I did that, if you noticed, I used the angled roof and then attached a flat roof to it, like this. See? And the reason I did that was so that way I can create a floor that the door will go on. If you just try and, unless you're free placing the wall, which then there's the alignment, you won't get it perfect. If you don't do it this way, per se, it could end up being that the door won't snap to the wall, say it's intersecting with something. So we're going to attach that door, and we're going to kind of play with it and see what that looks like. These are just kind of the initial assessment pieces. And, I mean, you can put your prefab, if you decide to use the prefab, anywhere you want. I chose to kind of put it towards the front of the boat, or like in the middle. But like, if you're looking for more like a trawler look, of those kind of boats where maybe the cabin's more in the back, you could do that as well. Got to remove a few roofs out of the way to make this work. It can be a little finicky. I will tell you that just like with anything snappable, as long as you can snap it into place, it'll snap through destroyed items. And you'll see that here soon too, soonish, because there's a lot of, we end up putting, once we have where the door is going to be, we end up building around the whole thing and destroying everything, and then snapping the prefab in. But we end up snapping it in a few times. But as you see, I got my prefab in to snap. It's not where I want that door to be, though. Or I should say that's not where I want the prefab to be. So I just modified it to a door that doesn't snap to anything. And then I was able to remove that prefab. Now I want to change the position of where that door is. I want it to be like further in, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do kind of a reverse trick. I'm going to end up snapping a doorway to that door, like so. And I didn't have to do anything fancy that. It'll just let me do that. And then we're just going to catwalk off of that wall, and then I'm going to attach another wall to try and get it a little closer. And yeah, this is how you would make those kind of adjustments if it's not where you want your prefab to be. And then I just go back to doing that roof thing again. Now I'm not going to be able to snap it to the bottom of the doorway unless I change it into a regular wall. There we go. And now I can attach that bottom roof piece. And then I can flatten it. And that flattened roof piece will be exactly where that door will sit perfectly without turning red on us. The doors can be really touchy. Turn that into a wall, remove it. Possible. Oh, it's attached to the roof. There we go. And now I can remove that door. And let's see if I moved my prefab far enough back. At least for now. We can always change it again later. You just don't want to do it too far in the build, because then it'll be even more of a pain to do. But I think I do it a couple times in this build, so there we go. And yeah, so this is, when I was first building this is kind of where I thought I was going to have the back of the boat. See how it kind of has more of a trawler look to it? I could have done that. Yeah, I guess. But I decided, I was like, man, if I can snap this thing through roofs, I could snap it through walls. Maybe I could make a really, really awesome tugboat. But anyways, at least that was my initial impression when I was doing this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add more roofs to this structure for flooring and or for the base. So and a lot of these builds, I see in social media a lot where people are like, oh, I want to know how to do like actual floors up in the sky. They're a real pain in the butt to work with. But anyways, I don't hardly ever use them. So what we're doing right here is I'm just putting the first roof. I was putting the first roof in to see what the bow of the boat would look like from underneath. If I, how I wanted to do that technique. And I end up coming up with a little bit of a better way to do that, but that's something that you guys could do too. I ended up building too close to the edge of the build circle, so I wasn't able to go underneath and do roofs. But that's okay because, there's always another way to do something. I should say there's almost always another way to do things. Now, this is a cool trick. So if you notice, I have that one roof and it's going the one way, and then I added the corner piece. And then now I can make the roofs go the other way because of the way that they lay flat after being attached to that corner piece. And the reason I did that is because I'm starting to add my floors to where my floors, the deck. Okay, we'll call it a deck, right? So we're adding the floors for the deck right now, and I just want to make sure that that's going to be the way that I want them to be going in that direction. This would also be a place too where you would consider, do I want my deck floors to be a certain height? So for me, I ended up making my deck floors a certain height also towards the front. Like they're not a half wall height one way or the other. They're kind of in the middle. So I end up using this as my opportunity to also add my door again, because if you notice, I removed it. Now I'm getting a better sense of where my build's going to be. I'm going to do this again. Notice how much further up I moved that. And, now that because I had already done it twice, I can just go ahead and rest assured that once I'm done here, I don't have to necessarily destroy everything right now, and I could just kind of leave it as is, knowing that I have my door in place. And we can just drag it over. There we go, and get rid of that wall. But this way, because I'm lowering and I'm changing if you could see those roofs, they're starting to change height a little bit. See how they're staggered, like what we talked about in the beginning. Refer to the 5 to 7 minute video range. See how it's like kind of in the middle. I raise them up slightly. So that way they go straight in instead of being near like the bottom of where that roof or the deck level would be. They kind of go in between, which kind of it creates a really nice effect. It looks really custom when you do it this way. So we're going to start adding our floors here. Now I'm using catwalks to change the length of the floors. They're all going to be running the same direction, but they can't all be going straight up to the front of the boat, because then they're going to clip through the walls in the front, right? So if you see here, I'm changing the where those roofs are going to snap at, because I don't want it to snap through the front of the boat. And I also want to make sure that my gaps are covered for the most part. There might be one or two really small gaps that you can cover up with the core, but I want to make sure that those are covered up too. So right here, see, I changed basically the angle of my roof right there. I can get rid of that guy. And then now it'll make more sense what I'm doing right here. Because look how close to the front of that boat I got without snapping through it. It's about a quarter catwalk away from the front. I end up changing this to about a half a catwalk towards the front. But yeah, I think that came out really nice comparatively. I also end up going a little wider than that too. So instead of doing 3 rows, see there's 1 in the middle and then 2 and 3. I end up going 4 wide. But this is I would use the exact same technique to do that. And it's really kind of dealer's choice. That's why I left this in here, because you could either be 3 wide or 4 wide. It's just that if you only go 3 wide based on this blueprint, you will end up, see how there's like a lip right there? And that's how I ended up doing it. See how it's 4 wide on each side right there? So it's the exact same technique. That's why I left that in there like that. So now That is about where I want my cabin of my boat to be. And I think that looks good. See, now we've made, at this point in the video, we've made that transition. We're like, yeah, this is going to be a tugboat. Hell yeah. So now I'm kind of studying and I'm seeing how wide I need my walls to be. So in looking at this, I identified that my walls versus the prefab are about 2.5 wide because I use the roofs to judge that. So if for those of you who are doing this, know that your walls will need to be about 2.5 wide. So now we're going to go ahead and add those walls. And I'm just using catwalks. I repaired one of the roofs, and once I repaired that roof, I was able to add a wall to it, and now I can add some catwalks so I can put some walls into more custom places. And this could for some be some trial and error here. For me, like I've been building so long that I was able to kind of really gauge where that prefab was going to start. But there might be some that might get frustrated because you might have put the wall in the wrong spot. So it would be good for you to probably like do a wall, test it, make sure it's in the right spot, and then kind of touch and go before you get halfway through your build and then realize, oh my goodness, my walls don't line up with my prefab. That would be a long road back to fixing it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just getting walls in place where where I know that prefab's going to be living, based on the measurements that I kind of eyeballed. And the other thing I'm doing too is I'm going to start moving the other walls in position and then also getting them double walled. So I have that outer wall that's over there, and what all that's doing right now, the one that's sitting out off yonder to the right, that's more of my placeholder for my to make sure if, in case I delete these walls or something goes wrong, I have a placeholder without having to start from the very beginning. And all I'm doing right now is, if you notice, I have the walls kind of double walled there, but they're not touching yet. I'm going to destroy those walls. And the easy way for me to do that without doing a bunch of repairs is just to add more roofs. And so I'm going to create another roof platform here, so I don't have to go back, repair, mess up my work. And then now I can just add my little flamethrower there, and then I can destroy the one wall. And notice they're both facing the exact same direction. That's because I catwalked the other wall away as we break it there. And so when I add a catwalk to the bottom like that, I can just snap the other wall right in place. And then I can remove the catwalk. And yeah. And this is how we're going to do all our walls around the tugboat. I'll do a couple with you. But, for all of these, this is how we're going to do it. Now, for those of you who are playing along and trying to do this, the tugboat walls that go around the prefab are just slightly lower than 3 half walls high. So it's like a wall and a half high. And it's about 2.5 walls wide. So it's going to take a little bit of custom work. So right here, you see I'm putting in that next wall, but I'm going to have that gap there. So what I'll end up doing is turning those into the concrete walls, like the corroded concrete walls, and then I will end up destroying them, and then I can do this exact same thing and use catwalks to snap the walls into place. First, we're going to get rid of that wall. Now that I've got 2 of those walls in place, I have another anchor wall that I could use, so that way I'm not going all the way back from the beginning of the wall placement of this and starting that process over. But we just want to get that wall destroyed, because all I'm going to do here is I'm going to add another wall and flip it backwards. So to do that, I'm going to add a catwalk. Oh no, I had already done that part. I'm awesome. So yeah, I just added catwalks and made sure I double walled it, because I'd already extended the other side of the wall out and kind of flipped it back in. And then what I'm doing here is I'm going to go ahead and start my edge, my corner there. We can remove that, and I'm going to do pretty much the same thing, except this time, because I have the walls there as like an anchor point, I can just get my catwalks ready, like so. I can go around take the long way home, so to speak. That last catwalk did not attach to that wall. It's because it's going the other way, and then I could just flip and add that other wall right there. And I do all of my walls like this. I'm gonna do one more so you can get an idea. But I go all the way around except for in the back. I could have done the back too, but I really like the wire mesh windows that they had in the back, so I end up framing them in with like an open wall. But yeah, you'll see that in the finished result. So yeah, and then all I need to do from here is just add my catwalks, and then I can add my wall, and then we are nothing but net. And again, to do the middle ones, I just turn those into the corroded walls, and like so. I'm doing this a little bit faster for you now because you're probably like, oh man, this is boring as AF or whatever the kids say nowadays, right? And then I can just break these walls up. I will end up having to repair one of these or leave one like that, which I probably should have done. But what I'm going to probably do first is make sure that my prefab is aligned. Remember, I don't want to do all of my walls yet until I know that my prefab is going to work here, right? I can get a better sense of like where the direction of the build's heading. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all these walls, and I'm going to change that door back into a regular door, because that door is a non-snapping door, so it's great for like removing prefabs. And now I can just go ahead and add that prefab back. Hopefully I didn't screw everything up, right? Drag it over. There we go. And now I can come down here and let's take a looky-loo. And yeah, my walls snap through. Now, don't be discouraged if you see it where the walls don't look like they're popping through the front. They barely pop through the front. So when you repair them, they will, though. It's just real close. And then when you wallpaper them, see? That's not even wallpapered yet. That's just the texture of those walls. So that'll work just fine. But yeah, we lined up our walls perfectly. So that's good. Yay, winning. And if you see, I've added some more walls since then. I end up going 3 high. Realistically, the prefab to wall it in absolutely perfectly would be about 2 walls and like a 3/4 or maybe even like 5/6 high. I end up just going the 3 walls high though, because I don't think anybody really noticed, and I didn't really feel like there was a need to do that. But if you're like even more of a perfectionist than I am, then you could totally do that too. But once you have your first set of walls in place, getting your next set of walls in place is really easy because you already have it double walled. So all I would have to do here is just break those walls, and then I could just repair the walls underneath, and then I could just snap those walls on top of them. These concrete walls are really good for this too, because they work just like the brick walls, except better. But while I have that wall in place, notice I left the one repaired there. I'm going to catwalk over, so that way I don't have to waste my time doing a bunch of crazy stuff here to blueprint, or to double wall. I can just double wall it from this side, since I have it over on that side. And I went out one wall extra, just like I've done several times prior. And see what I'm doing there? So I went 2 walls high. I'm going down and I'm making sure that I have a wall down below. So the deck of the ship is, like I said, 3 walls high. So I went to the high parts, and now I'm adding just the bottom parts of it, basically, is how that worked. And see, now you can see what I did there. I moved all of those walls to go down below, and now once I add my prefab back, all the walls are where they need to be. Again, I went a little longer on the backside. I went a full 3 walls high instead of going 2.5 walls high, and that was because I wanted to add a little bit of extra space in the back for like bathroom area type functionality. So from here, what we're doing is we're adding the roofs now because the walls are because the prefab's 2.5 walls wide. That means that the roofs have to be 2.5 roofs wide. Otherwise, you're going to be having a huge gap in the middle. So what I'm doing is I attached my roofs, and I'm only doing single roofs here because I want to use the prefab roofs. I think that they have a really cool effect on the inside. And so what we're doing now is I'm going to attach a wall up there, as you see, and then I catwalked off that wall so that way it was a 1/4 length away, which puts it dead square in the middle of the other roofs. And then what I'm doing is I'm attaching another roof like so. And then once I do that, I can add my other roofs there. And now I have plenty of roof coverage. Once I flatten that and I repair those, and if assuming the prefab's in position, then I would have no problem getting my prefab in, and then it's roofed on the upper part of the prefab. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I like doing this because then it made the walls make sense from underneath the prefab's arched roof. Otherwise, it just looked like it was like they were up too high. The way that I did it, and you'll see towards the end here, this kind of covers up and makes that part really feel more like a box instead of feel like an afterthought. And there we go. So our roofs are in position, but I'm still destroying them, even though they're all in position, because again, I'm going to have to slide my prefab through here, right? Yeah, and now it's starting to look like a real insane ship. In fact, it kind of looks like a ship without the prefab right now even, right? I'm just removing the excess roofs and things. I do a lot of jumping, and if you don't, I mean, you get to see the gift of editing, but I also do a lot of dying, in case anybody was wondering. There we go. I destroyed that last wall, and now everything in the path of the prefab pretty much is going to be gone or destroyed, so I can always snap it in and make sure it's where it needs to be. We still have one area that we need to do, really, one major area, and that's going to be the underneath of the ship. But first we're going to just put the door back in place and see how this thing snaps in, and see what that looks like. Again, I'm always checking. Because I don't want to have to go too far in my build to find out that I have to backtrack. But see, if I'd have done it 2.5 walls wide instead of 3, it would have matched it perfectly for those of you who might want to do it that way. But the other part to that too, if you're doing it only the 2.5 walls on the side, then you're going to have trouble with the portholes that I did using the half wall windows. Another thing too, sometimes when you get back up here, your walls are going to shift, which means these roofs are going to poke out of the front a little bit on certain walls. So don't hesitate to just go ahead and redo those before you get too into it, because once it shifts once, you should be fine. And just re-snap it to the wall. See how it's not poking out at the front there? It was prior. And you can do the other sides too, which is what I did. I ended up doing all the other sides as well. There were 3 that were poking out. Now we're going back to the bow part of the boat. And what I decided to do for the bow on all sides was I used a catwalk. I catwalked off the bottom of the wall, and then as you will see here, let me move my platform back because now I'm in my own way. I'm going to kind of do a similar thing as you saw to the first time, is add a angled roof. I'm going to flatten that. I'm going to get rid of that, or move it and then angle it up. Like so. I'm going to do this pretty much throughout the entire build, even on the walls that don't have the curvatures on it, because one thing you'll know when you're doing roofs specifically, for any of you who've been building for a while and you have some roofs that have ended up being slightly uneven, you always want to follow the exact same method of placement for your roof throughout your entire build. Otherwise, you might have different levels. Again, we talked about roofs having two different snapping points on walls. So if that's ever happened to you and you're like one roof's higher than the other slightly, it's because you connected it differently. You didn't do it as an angle, you did it as a flat, or vice versa. But again, this is a pretty easy process to do. It's just tedious because you got to do this for each wall that you have that you want to use for the underside of your ship. And there we go. It does get easier though as you get to the flat sides once you get through the bow part, because then you don't have to really destroy the roofs anymore, because there's nothing really intersecting with them stopping you from putting the roofs into place for the underneath of your ship. One other thing as we're doing this, I want you to notice like the roofs themselves, when we're flattening them, they go a little too low for my taste. So you're going to see in a minute how we're going to make it where it's flat with the bottom of those roofs instead of jutting out down even further, making it look like there's like a small platform underneath of it. Like it should be sitting on something. Rather, we want it to kind of be smooth. So what we're going to do that is I'm flattening one of those roofs. I'm going to add another roof back to it. And we're kind of platforming out by an extra roof. And that way I can get rid of that middle one here in a minute. And then, as you see here, see what I was talking about with that roof? It's kind of protruding down a little lower than the other roofs, right? So I want to make that look really like flush with the bottom of my ship. So what I'm doing here is I added the roof, I added the angled down version of that roof, and now I'm going to angle this back up. This got me a little bit lower, and I'm going to add a half wall to this. And I'm going to add an angled roof to the top of that. What we're doing basically is we're just making it to where the height of the roofs are going to be a little bit higher. Watch this. When I flatten this out and I add the roof back and I flatten it, it's not going to be protruding down too far anymore. It's going to be pretty darn flush with this last one. See how flush that is now? Look at that. And that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to end up doing that same exact process you saw for every single roof that's underneath this ship. I'm going to do it again. So for this, flatten the roof, add a roof, and I'm going to angle down a roof. So this is a little bit easier way. Angle it down, add my wall, flatten, remove, add another wall, or change the angle of my roof, excuse me, and so I can remove it. And now I'm going to add a angled roof to that. And then I'm going to flatten that angled roof. I'm going to walk it down by adding one more angled roof and then flattening it. And then it will be at the correct level at the bottom of this ship. So that way it's not protruding past the roof line for the outer ring, essentially. And that's going to look smooth. And again, it's just about the being tedious, right? Because we're going to have to do it a bunch of times. And in all honesty, like if you notice here, I'm actually doing it further out, not just the first ring, because I know I've got to get around the whole round part of the bow of the ship. So I'm actually going to do two roofs in. And it does get a little confusing. As you see, there's some broken roofs in there already. That's because I've done this a few times. So it does take just being focused, and it does take a little bit of patience with yourself to get it right. But notice I did 3 full roofs out. Yeah, 1 and then 2 and then 3. So that way I knew that I have the coverage. In the end, I was able to remove some roofs, but it's easier to take away the roofs than it is to add them after everything is said and done. And now I can add back my prefab. Woo, that is a lot of broken stuff, is it not? But it's looking good. It's looking like a boat. So after I repaired everything, now I've got to do the back of the ship. And I'm not going to walk you through the boring process of how to free float walls off of roofs. Just know that because the ship is like got to like notice the top roof is not a full half wall higher or lower because we gave it that extra custom look for like the deck of the ship. That means that in order to do this, I'm gonna have to merge some walls because I used that roof, the top roof where the deck of the ship was, and I angled it up, added a roof, and catwalked off. So that way, I know that the roofs or the walls were going to meet the top of the roof. But then I also use the roofs at the bottom of the ship to add the bottom layer, and then I'm merging them. See. And then for the sides, for the angled sides, it's actually pretty easy to do. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn this wall into a corroded wall so I can destroy it. And then I'm going to get rid of this wall. And then I'm going to add a roof, right? I'm going to flatten the other roof. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because I want the walls to the wallpaper side in. Because the whole boat is, I'm not double walling this boat. So I just wanted to go in. And so really all I had to do is destroy a couple roofs that were kind of in the way. And then now I have that side of the ship and it's put in, right? And so before I repair those walls, I can just add the walls that I had already pre-done at the bottom here just by angling up the roofs, adding a wall and then catwalking off of it. It's like you've seen me do in other parts of this build. And then really it's just about walling in the rest of it, right? So the back of the ship really isn't that difficult, which is why I didn't spend a lot of time on it. I will show you how to do the fins though at the bottom, right? So I used the same technique to get the roof to be one half wall lower than the entire build. And then what I did was I added the angled walls. Now I want to double wall these. So I'm going to add the first layer of angled walls, or angled, I don't know, the fascia walls, I guess. And once I get these in with this roof, I want them to be able to be wallpapered and look the same on both sides. I'm going to flatten that, and I'm going to add 2 more roofs on each side, like the wings of this thing, right? And then from here, I was able to destroy those fascia walls, and look, I can double wall them, no problem. And then once I flatten that, I can get rid of it after I do it to the other side as well. Shazam! That's how we do. So now I'm going to get rid of that middle roof, or angle it so I can get rid of the other 2 roofs, and then I can get rid of that one once I do that. And now I have the fins of my ship. Hooray! And with these fins, or with these fascia walls, they don't go the other direction. The wall itself will go back and forth. It's like one of the only ones where it does it like that. So just know that if they're not facing the right way, just change the direction they're going, and they will. Where you can wallpaper them on both sides. See what I did there? Pretty easy. Yeah, looking too good. Not looking too bad. I said looking too good. What's wrong with me today? I think this is because I am doing this really fast and trying to fly through this, because normally I give myself a lot more lead time, but of course I decided to be a white knight for Bethesda on social media, so I needed to put out this this tutorial out as soon as I could. Oof. Did I already tell you I die a lot when I do these? You can't tell. Oh God, I die so often. When you guys see me jump around, that's really beautiful editing, because I probably die more jumping than I do making it. But anyways, yeah, that's how those came out. and then you just flatten your roofs out, and then you've now got rudders on your ship. Hopefully I'm using the right terminology. I'm not. I love boating and I love the water, but I'm not really good at like the terminology. I'm more of like, drive that for me. I don't know what I'm doing. I do know that the green and the red colors mean something. You're supposed to drive on one side or the other of them. Yeah, but that's about the extent of my nautical knowledge. Well, anyhow, so now I'm going to show you something real quick, and this is what we call spam stacking. This is really easy, but I wanted to show you because this will be for what we're going to do next. So I spam stacked, 8 or 9 of these counters, and now I'm going to blueprint them. This is going to save me a lot of time and heartache later. So, however high you want your smokestack to go, that's how high you're going to blueprint it. Yep. And then, you just blueprint that. And once you blueprint that, you can snap other of the counters to it and to go around the loop. Now, we want to add smoke coming out of your smokestack, right? So I'm going to add the chimney to the top. Notice I put a mat down first. That way my little ducky there, had enough room on top there to place it directly in the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to destroy all of these things. And because I use those red ones, unlike some of the other counters, there are some that float, and then there are some that do not float. These ones do not float, which are perfect because it makes it easier to destroy. Now I'm going to walk down these chimneys here. And I'm going to remove that top one, and then I'm going to replace it with a smoked one. Then I'm going to remove the bottom one, so it's just sitting there. And then, boom. We now have smoke coming out of our smokestack, which is kind of what you're looking for in a smokestack, I reckon. Yeah, I think that came out looking really good. So that was the nuts and potatoes of the build. I didn't go over the I guess the mast of the ship. Really, it was just a couple of the enclave stairs posts, and I just kind of threw anything up there that looked like a mast, including like the weather machine. But I really hope that you all enjoyed this. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for all of your support. For those of you who do, I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoy my builds. I've got some real bangers coming, so keep up on the lookout for them. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you guys in the wasteland, and thank you so much for following me. I hope you stay safe out there, and y'all stay blessed. Have a great, great day.